Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is kiodiekin, and welcome to Pi Zone. This is a 128 gigabyte Raspberry Pi 5 retro gaming image. Now, I had no responsibility in making this. However, the image maker did release this today through a number of different Facebook groups. However, you guys, if you follow me with RetroPie Official, Home Arcade, the community, also my private Facebook group, as well as Supreme Retro Gaming, you can find the torrent link stashed there, as well as a number of different websites that may also be hosting this. It's a pretty cool image. It does provide access to the latest Dolphin Vulkan upgrades, as well as PlayStation 2 and Wii emulation. However, I can't stress this enough, you will need to optimize and configure all of that yourself in order to achieve the desired purpose of gaming. As you can see here, we have Wine, PlayStation 2, 3DO, which was pretty much impossible to run on the Pi 4. Let's get into it. You know what time it is. So first off, I have to say the image maker did a phenomenal job on this, and this has over 50 favorites in here, all Doom themed. In fact, this has a Doom centered theme or surrounded by it. That kind of takes us back to the 80s and the 90s for MS-DOS and a lot of other Windows 3.1, Windows 95 classics. As you can see here, we also have our standard retro gaming format, your Wii, your GameCube, your N64. We also have SCUM, VM, as well as a number of different emulators and front-end systems that you can run on this as well. Has a total of about 2,400 different games on here with a lot of unique mods that I've never seen before. So you guys will be pretty much happy with that, because a lot of Raspberry Pi front ends will not support some of these systems. Also included, something you guys want to keep in mind is that please go ahead and buy a Raspberry Pi 5 8 gigabyte image. Kind of stay away from the 4 gigabyte images, because you never know what resources are running in the back. And for the purpose of this review, I am using my PNY USB 250 SSD or USB flash drive. So you can burn this to an SD card or a SSD or USB flash drive, whatever makes sense for you. Also, I'm using a Raspberry Pi 5 8 gigabyte variant. Again, stay away from the 4 gigabyte models, because it does have certain requirements. We've kind of phased out the 4 gigabyte models due to all the requirements. And again, as you can see here, we have Sega 32X, which runs phenomenally well on here. Again, we also have Sega Saturn, which runs fine without any tweaks or any modifications. We got Dreamcast. We have a few games here as well. Sega Die Hard, the arcade games, runs really well on here. I believe I've showcased that here as well as the past. So that's nothing really new here, but we will see a number of other custom themes that are on here as well. We have Power Slave, we have Duke Nukem 3D. We also have your standard Doom, another noticeable favorites from this particular image. And a lot of artwork was on here, and I don't think every system has splash videos. That's not a big problem. I believe they just try to keep everything nice and neat. They didn't just dump a bunch of useless stuff that's on here. But if you guys want to add video splash screens and stuff, you pretty much can. They try to keep everything, keep things making sense on here, because a lot of these boards now, because of what we can run, takes up an additional amount of space with artwork. So they try to keep the artwork down to a minimum. Dreamcast, we also have Space Cadet 3D Pinball. That was one of the noticeable favorites when Windows 95 first came out. I believe is one of the top virtual pinball games that have been out there. 6 games for Neo Geo. We have 15 games for TurboGrafx 16. 3DO runs pretty well here on the Pi 5. We have a number of different PlayStation games on here as well. That's not surprising. PlayStation goes all the way back to, I believe, Raspberry Pi 2, Raspberry Pi 3. But you also get about 6 games included with PlayStation 2, 8 games actually. And we also have 4 games with PSP. Wine is your graphical front-end interface that will allow you to use x86-based applications within that particular environment. So for those of you who are looking for a number of different Windows-based operating systems to run, this is one of the first RetroPie images, not the first, but one of them that actually supports Wine as well. You have your Kodi. You guys can configure that yourselves if you want to watch a different number of TV shows and games. 2,474 games included, to be exact. And we have 50 favorites, all Doom theme entered. I haven't seen a lot of these games before, but it's really nice that the provider of this image provided a number of different Doom-based themes. And we're just going to quickly scroll through some of these so you guys can check them out. Got Castlevania. We got Doom Space Wars. Haven't seen any of those. You know, I actually spent some time playing Wolfenstein 3D, the classic, today. I remember when I was in school playing that game for hours. So just brought back a lot of fun memories, just kind of going through some of these games here. Got your Quake. We got RetroPie. So let's go ahead and take a look at our RetroPie configuration. Now, RetroPie is kind of taking on a life of his own. I know a lot of people think this is RetroPie, but there are so many configs made that, you know, most people really don't notice the difference. But you got your Bluetooth, you got your show IP, you have your audio tools here, configuration, and you have your ES themes, file manager, run command configuration line for those of you who know what you're doing in Linux. You got your splash screens, you got your boot selector, game list, overclock Pi. You really don't need to overclock your Pi, guys. You guys have seen a number of videos of mine where overclocking doesn't make any sense. However, we do provide a script there for you within the gaming community if you want to just go ahead and do that yourself. Again, that has really no effect on emulation. I've done a number of different settings, and it just doesn't... it doesn't show much of anything in terms of getting a gaming experience. We got your ROM setup swap. We got your VLC. But as I was saying earlier, there's such a big difference between an image like this. You could tell the image maker put in so much work that it drafts whatever a stock-based RetroPie image looks like. And for those of you interested to compiling one official version, you can go to their GitHub, download it, and try to compile it yourselves and have some fun with it. But I can promise you it's not going to look anything like this with all the little added tweaks and things that have been changed on here. We got our open board. We got Atari tweaks. We also have a brand new script, as you can see, the Cache SX2 Cleaner. So what that script does is it cleans out your logs and it cleans out your cache from your PlayStation 2 emulation experience. And what we noticed over time since maybe January or February is that over time the games will kind of cause some slowdown. I've noticed it, but not so much, too much, but they provided a script there for you that will prevent your emulation experience from slowing down. And so that's another cool thing that this image maker was able to provide, is that they are keeping those kind of things in mind for you. We don't want you to slow down while just trying to gaming experience. And remember, Ether wasn't, I don't think it was really a finished project, and we know the original developer just kind of left the project, so it is what it is, but it does work for ARM-based single board computers. We also have your GZ Boom SIJL, like 3 or 4 of these scripts. I have no idea what they do, but when you guys get your hands on it, you can play around and tinker with it and see how much you enjoy it. We also have Rise of the Triad Plus. Again, I have no idea what that does. And we also have Get PyApps. So if you want to install some additional PyApps, you can go ahead and use that and install that there as well. QJoyPad, phenomenal add-on. I could tell that this was already embedded to the image here within this particular single board computer, but with this front end, because there are some emulators. I can't think of which ones they are off the top of my head, but there are a few emulators that don't have joystick support. Emulation Station does not transfigure or transpose those controllers directly over to that emulator, so this is the workaround fix for you. So that image maker kept all of that in mind. And I can't even think of the name of that emulator. We use it all the time. It's not Redream. I don't think it's Naomi. I think there's another emulator out there that really needs that, but it slips my mind at the moment. You got your file manager. We also have your screen mode as well as the VLC downgrade emulation station. So there's some fixes there as well as some additional scripts. And of course, you got your configuration editor, which you can pretty much find on any other type of RetroPie build. Again, this is a phenomenal 128 gigabyte image. It is listed in a torrent file. However, you will also need to extract it. All the information will be included in the file. So in terms of your login, the SSH, as well as some other README notes, that was nicely provided by the image maker as well. Moving on to our next section, we have the other configs that are listed here as well. There's also another setting within the settings I kind of forgot to mention, where I'm using a Samsung G8 monitor, and so I had this little flicker earlier on in the day, and I had never seen that or experienced that on retropie image. But if you go to your system utility tools and go to screen, make sure you set your video output to auto. I believe the image is already set to a defaulted resolution of 1080p, and that'll go ahead and quickly tidy up that issue. Right now we're in the PlayStation 2 emulation setup, and as you can see, you have a number of different options here. You can start your Ether ES2 emulation on here. We got Bloody Roar 4 as well as a number of other games. Now, just to kind of quickly go over this, this emulator for this image is set up a little differently since your controllers will be automatically set up for you. In order to access the menu which you're currently looking at, you will need to press start and back on your controller at the exact same time in order to pull up this menu. Typically with some images, you just have to hit the escape button, it'll take you there, but since the image maker activated key joypad and is kind of reading from that, that is the quickest and easiest way to access this particular menu. So you can kind of go in if you need to change your software renderer or change your video renderer allocations or change your control settings. You can go in there and just quickly make some additional modifications. Now for this video review, I am using an Xbox keypad or joypad. I'm always using those for those particular types of games and setups because the drivers are always universal for these type of images. However, you can also plug in a mouse as well, and if you do so, if you double click on the left joystick or the left keypad of your mouse, you can also pull up the additional menu for the graphical interface and also make some additional changes. That'll be where you see at the top where it will typically say file or graphic or debug or activate your options or system settings. And then as you see here on the screen, once you access this, you can also go ahead and automatically set up your Xbox joypad if you need to already go ahead and do so. Crash Bandicoot runs pretty well. Again, I can't stress this enough. Please spend some time optimizing some things. These are not the good old days of Raspberry Pi 3 and Raspberry Pi 4 days where you just say, well, if the game doesn't run, it just doesn't run. No, these newer systems, they do require some tweaking and some modification to get them pretty much as peak as possible. And as you can see, I'm moving my mouse there to the top left of the screen after I just double tapped on the main screen, which will pull up that additional menu option. So just thought I'd give you guys a heads up for those of you just trying to access some of these additional menu options. All right, so once we're gonna kind of back out of here, we just take a look, see that the Crash Bandicoot is kind of running. It just takes a little load time here with the PlayStation 2 emulation. Again, not all images that are out for the Raspberry Pi 5 has PlayStation 2 integrated. So there's enough work. A lot of work have went into this to even make it bootable because, you know, even though you have a showcase on something or you could boot something from desktop like this particular emulator, it takes some additional tending, love, and care just to be able to get it to boot or work from a gaming front end like RetroPie. All right, so we're going to boot out of this. I'm not too fond of Crash Bandicoot, but it made for like a little nice showcase. We're going to go ahead and exit out of the system and get into some other additional gameplay and emulation. All right, so when you first plug in the unit, you'll be greeted with that additional Doom-based splash screen. And I don't know if this is on InstaBoot or whatever the case might be, but I've never seen a Raspberry Pi image boot so quickly. I mean, you have that little splash screen there, basic little logo, and then it takes you right into the intro. So the image maker decided to kind of get rid of all that other stuff, but it's pretty much a really quick boot that is on here. So we have some additional PlayStation 2 emulation here, as well as some additional games. We got Bloody Roar 4, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I did not add any of these games. This is what the image already comes with. And then just to give you guys a quick look at the graphical interface, this is what everything looks like here when you're in the Ether emulator. We'll go ahead and start up one of these just to give you guys a little taste of what the Pi Zone image has to offer. Again, based upon the current gameplay that you're taking a look at, there are some additional improvements you can make on your own. You got a nice little Rockstar logo here. You know, for the most part, Grand Theft Auto, from what I've seen in the past, they work really well on this. So there's not a lot of tinkering and stuff that you need to do to get some of these Grand Theft Auto games working. And it's a classic to me. Without having, you know, God of War, Grand Theft Auto, Tekken, and a few other games, you almost really don't have a PlayStation 2, you know, type system, because, in my opinion, those are some of the more iconic games of the time, you know, for that game. So, you know, usually if you don't have some of those, at least a Grand Theft Auto or something like that, including in your image, then, you know, you really have to, you know, think about what it is you're doing, because these are the iconic classics which made the console. So if you have your Grand Theft Auto, your Tekkens, your God of Wars, and so forth, then that makes for me a really good emulation experience, because you're really honing in on some of the classics. So again, this is the actual load time from the Ether emulator on Pizone. And of course, you can add in all of your additional artwork and media as well. And for those of you who didn't know, PlayStation 2 has roughly, I think it's about 11 to about 15 gigabytes of data in terms of artwork and whatever else you want to add to it. So you want to kind of be cautious in terms of what you're adding, because the video artwork, the video snaps, and so forth can fill up an image before you even start to add any games. All right, as you can see here, we're just kind of running around. We got some smooth emulation out of here. We're going to jump in this car and just kind of take it around the block, take it around for the city. Just want you guys to kind of see some of the smoothness, the improvements, everything that's been I had to offer. Let's see, now let's get in the other side. Yeah, there we go. Nice ride. Got some nice smoothness here. Don't have any screen tearing. Everything's running pretty smooth. And oops, I just ran into a tree. So let's go ahead and get into traffic. Good gameplay. Nice smooth action. Nice and smooth. Alright, so let's bounce out of here. We're just going to hit start and back on the controller to quickly exit out. We got some N64 emulation here. Now, 007 GoldenEye does need a little bit of improvement. I believe some of these games for this N64 emulator have been associated with Parallel, so that way you get the best experience, which that emulator also uses Vulkan, so you'll get some really good experience with that as well. And here we have Mario Kart 64, so let's jump into the game and see what this game has to offer from an emulation perspective. Phenomenal gameplay. We didn't have any issues with N64 at all. So let's do something a little bit more demanding. Let's take a look at some of the GameCube emulation, particularly on this build. I believe there's a couple of games loaded on here. And if you need, there's two ways to launch. You can launch directly from the Start Dolphin or directly from the game itself. However, if you launch from the exact Dolphin emulator, that will allow you to set up your emulators or actually set up your controls, particularly for that emulator. And keep in mind that GameCube and Wii both use the same emulator to adjust your controllers. Now I have the sound turned down all the way. It did kind of stutter at the beginning of it, but after a little while it definitely adjusts, and you can see that the gameplay is pretty smooth. Again, not every front end or image provides any of this, so you can definitely see the changes that we've made over the past several months. No stuttering, no hiccuping. And, you know, some people have asked me in the past, how come I don't turn on the frame rate counter? I've made a video about that in the past, and in some cases the frame rate counter will show 30 or 60 FPS, but in some cases you'll still see slowdown, so I really don't use that engaging it. And some of these games actually run faster than they're supposed to. But, you know, nevertheless, I think this is a really good image. For those of you looking for something really small, something to get started with, this is one of these smaller Raspberry Pi 5 images that is out there on the market, and I definitely think it will impress most of you. Again, you have plenty of room to add your own artwork, add your own games, your own additional configurations. Tons of room to grow on it. But this is a good start, especially considering this already comes included with that Q joypad. And, you know, with that being said, you know, that Q joypad is going to come in handy for some of those additional emulators that definitely are required. But let me know what your thoughts are about this particular image. And you can, again, as I've said, you can find this particular image in a number of different Facebook groups, whether it's RetroPie Official, Arcade Paradise, Supreme Retro Gaming. If you follow this channel, just click on the link. I even provided it in my own group, and I believe there's some other websites that may be offering or hosting this image as well. But back again, there are some additional images I do believe coming out. I'm not sure if they're RetroPie or Raspberry Pi 5 based, but you can find those here sometime before Christmas. So with that being said, I will catch you guys later. Peace out. This is kiodiekin. Catch you later. Bye bye.